Yes.
Okay, hello and welcome to Weekly Inkblot episode 12, Why Family Learning is Important. I think that's what the title was.
Yes, my family
Yes,
learning.
okay. Just making sure. So, this is only the first of a couple of different family episodes we're going to end up doing because the issue and when I say family, I am including like your basic support group of family and friends because really a lot of people with mental health view people outside of their family as better family or more of a family to them than some of their own um, blood family, unfortunately. So I'm including all of them. Um, so we're going to talk about why it is important for families to do the learning, do the research, and in what ways they can. Um, so I guess we'll open it up with a question. What role do families play in mental health?
Um,
Important one.
well, we have my mother here today, who I mentioned before is one of my biggest support systems.
Mm-hmm.
Again, she's seen it kind of from all sides, so I'll let her.
Honestly, I wasn't totally aware of what the topic was. I just knew that it was like a family episode today. I can say from both of my kids clearly having some trouble, my ex-husband,
Mm-hmm.
both of my mother-in-laws, and now my mom is having some issues as well, and a long, long, glorious family history of very frighteningly brilliant but not well people that we've had quite a bit of experience with trying to deal with every aspect of this. And sometimes, even though you're used to dealing with it, new aspects of it come as a complete and total shock. We weren't, I think, aware or prepared for what was going on with Katie. We knew there were some problems, but it just, I think, came out of left field. So we're still learning. It's an ongoing learning process for us all the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I found
That
that.
came through correctly.
Yeah,
Yes.
it did.
Okay.
It did. I found that families play an important role in multiple directions. First of all, they play a role sometimes in shaping mental illness, um, which can be good or bad. Sometimes family is the reason that mental illness gets worse or is becomes a problem. Like if there's severe abuse in the household, neglect. Um, and then once it's an issue, um, families that aren't trying to learn, that aren't trying to change and help the person with the mental illness, can actually cut off. I mean, not completely cut it off, but kind of bring it to a slow stop recovery. Because if your family's not helping and you live with them and it's a constant struggle, then you're going to have a much harder time getting better because you're around that negativity.
Well,
Or
and I have to say too, I mean, it's all well and good to want to help the person that's going through problems. In our family's case, everybody has problems. My husband is bipolar. I have major depression and am borderline personality myself, and have got a daughter who really has a whole lot of yet unknown and undiagnosed issues coming home here. So it's not just dealing with her issues, it's dealing with everybody else's issues too, and trying to get everybody so that they can deal with each other and understand, everybody's going to have a bad day here and there.
Mhm.
It cannot be focused solely on one person's issue, so it has to be a give and take situation. It cannot be all about the person with the issue all the time.
Mhm.
And it's very hard. And actually, something that my stepdad had brought up today. I mean, most people have some form of depression or another,
Mhm.
and it's a matter of trying to everybody work together to get through their own problems and issues and try to be at least understanding that the other person's having a hard time just as
Mhm.
much as they are.
I think it's interesting trying to build a working family with a group of people that all have different mental issues, but they are all prevalent mental issues. It's not easy to get a group all working towards a common goal and getting common ground when everyone's coming from different perspectives and their own issues that they can't think around. That's quite a task.
Oh, yeah, it really is. That can when they're not working together and there's so many frustrations that rise up in multiple areas. Um, like in your guys' case, like where you guys are trying to figure out the whole Katie situation and learn how to handle it when she gets home. Um, there's a lot of frustrations that happen because people aren't listening to each other. People aren't working together. They're working against each other, and it's like you
There's a
can't.
lot of anger and resentment in there too, and I think that's
Mhm.
going to be the case with any sort of family member dealing with a long-term mental illness. While you try to be loving and supporting of that person, you're going to have a point where you build up. You've got anger and frustration because you can't wrap your head around the person that you're dealing with issues, and you just want them to, it's like, why can't you listen to me and do what I'm telling you to do because that's how this is going to fix this, and not grasping that that's not how their mind works. That's really, really a challenge.
Mhm. Uh, one of the goals with this idea behind family learning is that people work together towards understanding like things that how they need to be done in order to get everything accomplished without setting off everyone into a bad spiral. It's about learning what each person needs and understanding that, you have to give and take. And helping someone with mental illness is just as much it has just as much to sometimes to do with your reactions to certain things as it is to them learning to stop those reactions.
Yeah. Yeah, and I find that you can't you have what's really important is if there's slip ups, there's blow ups. But it happens. Nobody can be constantly trying to tiptoe around each other. It doesn't
Hmm.
work. And it's unfair to everybody if they can't voice what's hurting them or what's bothering them because they don't want a confrontation. Confrontations in families happen.
Yeah,
They have to. That's how
Yeah.
we grow.
and I
Yeah.
think the goal of dealing with a person with mental health issues is to try and help them become a functioning member of society, to become self-reliant and that's what I'm looking for here, responsible for their
Hmm.
own actions, their own life, and can't to try and get them away from using that mental health issue as a crutch to not participate in life and society anymore. That's, I think, a job as a family member is to try and to get them to the point where they can function. And in our kind of unique situation here, it's hard when everybody has functioning issues. I mean, I know for me, I'm not a people person at all. Going to work every single day is an exercise in absolute self-control of not just taking my computer and jumping it over my boss's head. I mean, I really don't do well out in public. I don't. And Lee and my husband can tell you, I'm out too long. I tend to blow up at people and perfect strangers who've done nothing wrong. It's just that's how I am. I don't do well in it. But it's because it's what pays the bills and it's what provides our insurance, and that's what I have to do. That's how you manage. It's just a matter of what can you tolerate and how long
Mhm.
and trying to function in society and knowing what is expected of you. I mean, you can. I think the best part about your family is when the door is shut, society is outside. You can kind of let your freak on and let everybody see what you're going. And yeah,
Probably not the best phrase, but
yeah. If you were to show that, at your job or at the grocery store, yeah, they'd probably lock you up. But at least back here, you can come home and go, I don't believe that person at the store, they lost their mind and they were wearing purple pants. you know?
Yeah, and I'm not gonna lie, my family, we're all total freaks. We're every one of us. We go down to visit my sister. By the end of the day, we're all cranky. We just want to go home. We just want to get away from it. And sometimes we'll stop at places like Trader Joe's, things like that. And it's crowded. And Mom and my stepdad hate people as a whole. I don't like being in small spaces with a crap ton of people. So all of us are just on edge already from an already stressful situation. And by the time we get out of there, we're at our breaking points.
It's never a pretty situation. And by the time we get back here, I think everyone's on the edge of mental collapse. It's just never pretty. Yeah.
Yeah, and that can happen.
Yeah, and there's a great deal that families would should and could do, but I think at the end of the day, it's once again it's a give and a take situation, and I think you really need to try and work with your mental health issue family member to try and understand where you're coming from too, and sometimes the task of doing all those things and making it all work together is insurmountable. I mean, we're just beginning to guess what it is we're walking into. We don't know which Katie's coming home because every time we go down there, we have a different Katie that we're dealing with. So we don't know what's coming. We know that it's probably not a while. And we're all trying to wrap our heads around that. We're some very angry, upset, resentful people now. That's going to take some time to get over. That's a deep, deep wound. And I know everybody else that has a family member that has mental health issues, sit there and kind of catalog all the wrongs that the person that has mental health issues done to them and sit there and think, I'm really mad at you. That's really hard to overcome. And they still love that person. You have to do your best to try and work with them because they're still your family. It's not like you can chuck them out in the cold. I don't know.
Well, that's what's good about your guys' situation is that you do love her so much that you are willing to go through all of this frustration and these disagreements and confrontations and everything in order to try to figure out what is best for her.
Well, let's make this more interesting. My ex-husband's family has pretty much worked against the program get-go, right from when the girls were young on, and that's made it very difficult because you have a whole bunch of adults that are all squabbling over how to deal with the person who has issues. None of them can agree, so you have a camp mentality, and that goes on to this day. I mean, we just had an incident this past week that got me to the point where I'm refusing to communicate with any of them because they're absolutely going against everything to do for her. It's hard when you have family members who have different viewpoints and they don't all want to cooperate. So then you're going to be putting confusion on the person you're trying to help and also giving them a way out because not everybody's doing it the same way and trying to make sure everything is being handled the same way so you have consistency. That's been a difficulty that I've dealt with girls their entire lives.
That, and as a whole, I mean, I've got two different mentalities when it comes to mental health in my family. My dad's side of the family, you just don't talk about it. Yeah, they'd rather just kind of ignore that it exists. You just deal with it on your own, and that's that. My mom's side of the family, we're all far more open that we have problems. We're a lot more likely to talk about what's going on. We're a lot more open about going, okay, well, what can we do to help this situation not occur again? We do.
And I was about to say that your mom's family has a much greater chance of eventually getting out of the cycle of behaviors that make it worse, be, and could have the future of a chance that you know, if you were to have kids and they did have depression issues with it or bipolar or anything like that, you guys are willing to deal with it and admit that it exists and try to figure it out. Whereas the other side of family, really, unfortunately, will continue to make the same mistakes over and over and over again.
I mean, take it my mom's side of the family. She refused to think Austin was bipolar, and
Mm,
um, when both me and Aaron went to her and said, "Hey, we just tried killing ourselves," she's like, you shouldn't try to. You're just sad. That's all that's wrong." And it's like, really? You're really trying to underplay this when you know Adam's, got Asperger's, nothing could be wrong with anyone else in the family. All right, super.
mm. And there's a difference in my family in that on mom's side and with my stepdad, we talk about what's going on and we try to figure it out and we learn. And then my father's a good part of the family just kind of ignores it. And it's like, you know, when I started cutting, um, because I'm a self harmer, when I started cutting, my mom was in this state of relief almost because, like, well, at least she's not trying to kill herself this time, but she wanted to figure out what to do to fix it. Whereas, you know, I told my father about it, and he was like, well, you know, as long as you're doing that, you're not allowed in my house. And it's like, how does that help?
I think there's a generational thing too. I mean, at least, the generation I was brought up in, I think were brought up with a little bit more open-minded attitude towards mental health issues. I mean, in the 80s, it was fashionable to be in therapy. Everybody was in therapy. That was the thing. So
Mm-hmm.
you got to the point where it was a lot more acceptable to talk about. My mother's here, and unfortunately, that's the group that brought Ellie and Katie up. That was just something you simply did talk about. And my mother, while she will talk about it, is far more reserved about it than I am. My husband is. But I think really it's a generational thing, and because we have more access to more information, more technology, and we are curious enough to go look it up. I mean, my first reaction when all the things happened with Katie was to go find out everything about what it was she was doing immediately and start trying to
Mm-hmm.
research it, and then going to try and find help so that we would understand how to deal with her. That is not how the generation before mine would have dealt with this.
Well,
Mm-hmm.
it's because they don't have access to the information we do now.
Exactly, exactly. If my mom would have probably thrown me into a counseling thing, but wouldn't have really done a whole tremendous amount to look into what all the causes were, or what in Katie's case, what the drug was and what the behaviors were.
Mm-hmm.
For us, that was it became a huge detective issue, and let's go look into every aspect of this so that we can understand. And we're now talking about, we need to find somebody that can help counsel us as a family on how to cope with Katie's issues when she comes back, because we don't know. And we know we're in over our head.
Mm-hmm.
But generations before us never would have gone there. You just would have brushed it under the rug, and that would have been that.
Maybe had a stiff drink.
Yeah, have a stiff drink and get over yourself tonight. That would have been the end of that.
Mm-hmm. And I'm hoping as we learn more that the future generations and the kind of stigma we have right now, so that it's just as open as, like, you know, patients who have diabetes or have cancer or any kind of physical illness, that we can just talk about it and research it.
Well, I do think there is definitely a stigma to mental health issues, because I think far too many people have used their mental health issues as a crutch to excuse bad behavior or to withdraw from society or to not work, while people with those other issues continue to participate in society. And I think that's probably why there may be a different idea of perception by the public of people with, okay, these are actual illnesses, but people can, go get a shot. They can, take a breathing treatment, but they're still functioning, and don't understand sometimes that people with mental health issues, yes, they do need to get back to being a functioning member of society, but I think sometimes the process is so much different, and there's no magic pill, there's no magic word that's going to come in and fix it all for you. is, okay, diabetes, hey, I can just go take a shot of insulin, I'm going to feel better, and I can get back to my job. So there's certainly a different perception, I think, by the public as to what the issues are, and there's so many people that have used that as a crutch for why they've done terrible things. I think most currently T.J. Lane, the Chardon killer. What a nut job that kid is, and I'm sorry, there's not a illness out there good enough to excuse that or his behavior at his trial, and I pity his poor family for having to cope with it. But that's the type of person that's going, well, see, I'm ill, and that makes it okay for me to go and shoot a bunch of people. And that's, I think, part of what continues to stigmatize the mental health problems that are out there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, part of learning about mental health and mental illness is to and this is really part of the patient's recovery, is to admit that there's an issue and to admit that you still have control of yourself. You may not have control over your thoughts or your feelings, but in the end, you are still responsible for your actions. And when something happens, to be able to stop and be like, okay, what I did was wrong, and I shouldn't have done it. I'm sorry. Let's talk about what happened.
I think, too, part of the biggest, part of learning is when you have made a mistake, A, you need to recognize that you made the mistake, and B, you need to make a concerted effort not to make it again.
Mm-hmm.
One of our biggest mantras here at the house, the definition of insanity, is doing the same thing over and over and over the same way and expecting a different result. We have seen evidence of that in both roles a couple of times, and when you kind of bring them back to that reality, they go, oh yeah, wait a minute, that's right. And I think that is probably the clearest statement I can make of that.
Yeah.
Now, I'm sure a lot of people are going to be like, well, you keep talking about this family learning, but what exactly does that entail? There's a couple of different ways in which you can do this. I would suggest to do multiple directions. The first direction is, as we said, research. Research the issue. There are so many ways to do this. There are newspaper articles, there are books, there are websites, but of course, you should be looking for reliable websites. Blogs are a good one, but sometimes just remember that that's not the scientific side of it. So you can look at like what the personal side of it is, but that some of the things may not be able to hold up scientifically.
So you mean Jim's medical